Alrighty, so it is Oscar Sunday, and I have now watched every single 2024 Best Picture nominee, and so I'm going to do my due diligence and rank them all based on my opinions, but I also want to spice it up and play some what-ifs, because I think that'll be even more fun and entertaining. So I'm going to also try to predict who will win the Oscar for Best Picture and place these what-ifs to see who would win with these what-ifs included. So let's get started. And in 10th place, to I think no one's surprise, last place on this list is Maestro, a movie that I truly think is just nothing happens, and it feels like nothing happens, even though there are a lot of events in the movie that happen. In my personal opinion, it just feels like nothing happens in the story, and it has no emotional stakes and value. Like, I was not connected with anything in this film, and it was really hard to connect with this film because it also didn't feel like trying to connect. I don't know if it's just me, but I personally could not get invested into this movie, and so I find it to be the worst Best Picture nominee for this year, and thus it is in last place. Up next, in 9th place, is Killers of the Flower Moon, a movie that on its own is very solid, but my issue is that my expectations when it comes to Scorsese, De Niro, DiCaprio, it is just so high and so otherworldly that this movie just does not reach it, and so I cannot in good heart rate it higher than some of these other ones that connected to me a little more, especially since this one has the same issue as being very similar in a lot of ways to Oppenheimer. And in my opinion, Oppenheimer has just done everything better. So, Killers of the Flower Moon in 9th place. In 8th place, we have The Zone of Interest, a film that is so eerie, so, goosebumps inducing. It is very, very, unnerving. It's a film that relies a lot on its sound design to make excellent work, and honestly, I'm going to keep it frank. I constantly thought that it would be Oppenheimer for Best Sound, but The Zone of Interest really puts in the work to compete for Best Sound at the Oscars. So, but yeah, other than that, I think that movie was pretty hard to follow because it was beautiful to look at and beautiful to watch, but the subtitles would come and go so fast, and sometimes they blended into the background, and I don't speak German or Polish, or, I can understand French, Portuguese, and English, but, I can't do that one, and they spoke way too fast for me to keep up, and I couldn't read it half the time, so I got a little lost and did not know where the story or what the dialogue was about sometimes, but the visuals and the eerie sound design was enough to keep me engaged, but not engaged enough to move up higher on the list. At number 7, we have Past Lives, a film that is way more tragic than you would expect, and I did really enjoy it. However, my issue is that it just feels awkwardly paced. The beginning felt a little fast, and the middle felt a little slow, and then all of a sudden I'm at the end again by the time I reach the third act, and it just sort of ended for me, and I'm like, wait, how did this happen? But really enjoyable, really good story. I see why it's nominated. I do understand why most of these that were nominated, and I'll go into my what-ifs later. But yeah, not good enough to beat number 7. At number 6 is Anatomy of a Fall. This movie is great. I do have some issues with it, and that is the lack of score, I think, really undersells this movie, because as I was watching some of the other ones and these grand scenes, the sound design really makes the scene work more, And if you add that on top of some great acting, you can really enhance the scene, which is why I think like Oppenheimer and Poor Things have a lot of this, where the score mixes in with dialogue from the movie, and it really helps enhance the scenes. And this one just didn't have it, but the acting was pretty fucking great, and so it really solid. Almost misses out on that top 5, but still solid at number 6. At number 5, we have Barbie. This is a really fun, wild ride that in most cases should just be honored it got nominated, because I don't think we get many movies like this get nominated for Best Picture. So it's just an honor to be here, and I must say that it is a great candidate. It's a fun nominee, and it has a great message at its core. So honestly, I'm happy it got nominated. But let's move on to number 4, which is American Fiction. This movie will probably never win Best Picture. This style of movie, I think the satire in this is too much for some people to comprehend, and they'll miss the point of it entirely. But I thought it was great. It was hilarious. I love how this year we have 4 comedies, like just outright comedies, nominated for Best Picture. It is a wildly fun time, and this is upper tier. I loved this movie. I even saw it twice this year. But moving on to number 3, and that is The Holdovers. This movie is great. I think it will become a staple of many Christmases in the future. It is such a great, heartwarming tale. Paul Giamatti does great, but I honestly do think that it did get snubbed for Best Supporting Actor for Dominic Sessa. I think he should have gotten nominated. I do think he got snubbed. Upon my rewatch, I noticed how good his performance is, and if his performance wasn't that good, I do not think Paul Giamatti's would have been as good. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on that. And next up, at number 2, it is Poor Things. This movie is great. It is hilarious. I really like Emma Stone in the role. She is my frontrunner for Best Actress. It is pretty clear to see why. But now I've just associated this movie with a line from Tropic Thunder. And if you know Tropic Thunder and you've seen the movie, you know exactly what line I'm talking about. And if you don't, ask in the comments. Maybe I'll answer. But yeah. Second place, as I do not think any movie tops this, because first place is Oppenheimer, and I have shared my praise of Oppenheimer multiple times in the past already, so I'm just going to keep it brief and say every time I watch this movie, I get equally as anxious every time. The Trinity test scene is still one of the best in the year, and it's just a great watch. I love this movie. But now let's talk about some what-ifs. I think it's pretty clear that I think Oppenheimer will win Best Picture, but now let's talk about some what-ifs. What if Dune 2 had actually come out last year? Where would it have gotten nominated for Best Picture? Who would have been left out had Dune 2 been nominated? And I think the obvious answer is... There's 2 obvious answers in my book for who would have gotten left out. I think that if Dune 2 had come out last year, Barbie or Maestro would have missed the cut. And it is just due to the fact that, in my opinion, Maestro is the weakest of the Best Picture nominees. And I just think that Barbie would not have as good of a shot at getting nominated against Dune 2 if the Academy chose to back Maestro instead. But that's one what if. My second what if is, what if the Academy actually respected the medium of animation? I do think Across the Spider-Verse would have been nominated. If both it and Dune 2 got nominated, because Dune 2 had come out last year, I do think Barbie and Maestro were definitely out of the list. But like some recent drama has come up about The Holdovers, which is questioning its legitimacy now, but I don't think it would really affect its Best Picture contention as much as its Best Original Screenplay contention. But if the drama around the holdovers had started earlier during the voting process, I do not think it would have gotten nominated. And I do think that it would have, if Dune 2 had come out last year, if the Academy had properly respected animated features, I do think that we would have seen Dune 2, Barbie, and Spider-Verse instead of the holdovers and Maestro, just due to the fact that I think if enough negative press happens with the holdovers and it does prove to be true, I do not think it would get nominated anymore. But it's still a great movie, so don't get me wrong. But in terms of Best Picture, I do think it'll be Oppenheimer. But yeah, that's my thoughts on it. I just decided to make this since I watched all of them for once, and I wanted to talk about it. But yeah, leave a like if you enjoyed. Comment down below if you're checking out the Oscars or not. And other than that, I will leave you guys to it.